Good evening, everyone. I am Tracy Casey-Arnold, better known as TA, reporting into the Bat Cave, superhero for life, superhero for Christ tonight, you guys, as we join every Thursday night right here with all the superheroes that are representing for Christ tonight, especially when it comes to the different topics we've been bringing over the last probably a few months. I am excited to be here with you yet again tonight, you guys. Where tonight our focus, as we have been talking about transition, change, metamorphosing, is a topic that, man, just continues, honestly, our list of where we were last week. We only got to 2 questions last week. But lo and behold, as I looked at the questions 3 through 7, it was all focusing on one thing. It's when you're hooked, when you're in a situation, when you're in a relationship, when you're even in a position and you know it is time to move. You know it's time to transition. You know it's time to end it or just uproot and get out, but you can't. Everything about you just makes it difficult. You find yourself going from back and forth and up and down. I'm leaving today. No, I'm staying for another month. Or, oh my God, this has got to change. It's never going to change. I just need to end it and step out on faith that God has got me. And here you are a week later. How am I going to do this? I need this. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for new. And oh my God, what will happen to me if I was to walk away? Or we find that sometimes we're in situations where we really have to strategize an exit plan because maybe even the relationship that we're in with that person or that position with others involved, it is not so easy. We find ourselves in a situation called hooked and can't get out. So with that, you guys, man, let me welcome and bring on my co-host with me that join me every week. We're missing one. We're going to talk about him and lift him up in prayer again. But man, there's no way that I could join every single week without my band of brothers, as Quentin calls it, in my other half. That's the way we roll, especially when it comes to these topics that these gentlemen know how many questions are on this list. And as I said, with the holidays, we may be still going on in January all the way up to Valentine's. Who knows? Whatever the Lord wants, and we're not here to rush it. We're here to talk about it. And so with that, let me welcome my co-host with me tonight as I look down like the Brady Bunch. Man, welcome, Byron. How are you tonight, love? He's trying
What's
to
up,
unmute.
sis?
There it is. We got you.
Trying to find that mute button. Doing good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's been a long week.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been a long week. We were talking earlier that with this time change, the days are shorter, and you're trying to get everything that you could get done. You're like, man, I'm late, and other people are running late because they're having a hard time transitioning, metamorphosing into the new season. Wow, that just kind of fit perfectly, Byron. And so with that, man, over to the right, I tell you, y'all all got beautiful smiles. Jeff, what is going on, brother? So excited that you're here tonight for this topic. And let me just say it before everybody, you are wonderful because you knew you had to go, but you were just doing everything to stay and hang. And just, I'm going to tell you again, thank you so much for that because it wouldn't have been right. We needed to conclude where we were. And so welcome tonight, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. And my little great niece survived. She got more time with her great grandma. So she just let me show up when I got there. It was all good. We had a good weekend last weekend.
You know what? And make sure you tell her again that TA said thank you. She's blessed a lot of people. The sacrifice is real. So thank you for that. And then up above so high, as the song sounds, and the little rhyme we used to sing, as kids, is my better other half, which is with me tonight. Man, babe, Q, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to this.
Yes. Okay. All right. Look at all of y'all. Y'all know these questions that are coming up. And again, you guys, I hope y'all are noticing we're playing around with it, trying to see what we need to do. I'm hoping I can keep the flames behind it, but maybe not. It's my new what do you call a little icon that we're trying to start with, my superhero for Christ, where we got Batman, we got Superman, we got Captain America, and hello, y'all. Y'all know I got some Green Arrow here. So we're working on it, trying to mold it and see what works best for screen and view. But with that, you guys, let me welcome some of you. And let me say this to you. Man, the other night we had a lot of people on, and I couldn't welcome you, and I'm so sorry because I want to try to touch everybody, especially as the Lord is moving. And so with that, welcome Eslin. Eagle Eye. Man, welcome back. Man, you've been hanging with me for the last couple of shows. So welcome back. So glad you're here. Cyril Lewis, welcome back. So glad that you're here. And I know there's 3 people that it says I can't see. So, oh man, just say hello to me. And I can do a shout out and welcome you. Welcome Kenrick Izagiri. So glad that you joined tonight. Nellis, Jacob, so glad. Kevin, Herbert Galloway, welcome. So glad you've joined us for the Superhero for Christ show. Man, Trevor Palmer, my boy, I'm so glad that you're here with me. Welcome back. Debbie, man, welcome all the way from Louisiana. So excited that you're here. Man, look who's online. It's the other superhero who's down, you guys, but definitely not out for the count. We got Superhero for Christ, Xavier, my brother, on. You guys can continue to lift him up in prayer. He definitely got COVID, and let me tell you what, we've been checking in with him 2-3 times a day to make sure that he's good, and we've been singing him boogie songs is what we've been doing. And yesterday he got serenaded by Boogie herself. Man, talk about special when you know you've climbed the ladder. So love you, brother, and again lifting you up, that God just continues to carry you all the way to the end. Joe Ben and Harry Tom, so glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. Papa Casey is in the house. Welcome, so glad you've joined, Daddy. And then Harry Tom, so glad that you're here. Man, Omar Buke, so glad that you're here, brother. Thank you for joining me tonight. Good to see you. Tamara McLean, so glad you're here. Jane Ramirez, so glad you're here. Man, and again, you guys, I know there's others that are on, but man, just do a shout out and say hello, and I'll take another break here as we get started to just welcome everybody properly, because when we hang out on Thursday nights, especially Thursday nights, where I'm bringing messages on the other days, this is the night where it's all about community. It's a meetup. It's a hangout online, you guys. And so with that, we're going to get started with these topics because last week, we were really kind of moving into, again, talking about transition. And we were talking about the breakup. So we kind of started the topic with breaking up with things, breaking up maybe with people, breaking up even with the way that you used to do things. It means leaving the old and deciding to grow into something more, maturing maybe, or just taking that step of faith to say, you know what, I even deserve more, or this doesn't match up to who I am today. That where I'm going to love them and even keep them in my life, man, I got to move forward. And we struggle with that, because we want to love everybody. We want to be there for everybody. But I will tell you, and I love that the word says this a lot too, that who you have up next to you, as I covered in the Arrow series with Who's to Your Left. Woo, that was a good series, y'all. I may have to run those reruns again here over the holidays. Is it matters. Because you want someone that is going after what you're going after, that believes in what you're after, that can continue to support your growth and not pull you back in. And that is definitely somebody that understands that living life with Christ, no, you're being elevated, not staying where you are. And you want people in your life that truly can talk to you, walk with you, gird you up because they know him, which means that they can witness with you. And so with that, you guys, we're going to dive into the questions here. And, last week we talked about why is breaking up so hard to do? And then we said, why is breaking up so easy? Because we see the divorce rate, or we see people just saying, you know what, I'm not doing this job, I'm out. They'll not even have a job to go to, and they'll just quit. Don't even know how they're going to pay their bills, but they're just like, I can't handle this. I can't do this anymore. This is too much for me. Bounce, I'm out. Well, now we're going to talk about is when you need to leave. And so I want to kind of add a question. And yes, Byron, it's a pop quiz, like Keanu Reeves said in, Speed. Pop quiz. Here we go. What are signs that you guys feel that it's time to leave? And you can pick anything, a relationship, a situation at a job, or even with a friendship. When is it time to get unhooked? Man, Byron, I'm going to come to you first just because I know you hate when I do pop quizzes. It drives you nuts. He's like, quit. Y'all need preparation.
You be testing the love early.
There you go. I got to go to you, Byron. So, what are some signs, or whatever one you want to start with, when it's time to, man, walk away, to leave, to move on?
I'll talk from a personal perspective, right? So in my relationships, and I'll say, not necessarily work, but just a relationship in general. I can pretty much tell I can the actual day where the lady has decided, this is just not working for me no more. I'm just working on a reason why I got to go, and I can the dialogue changes. There ends up being a little less dialogue. I joke and say that if a and I don't want to pick on just a woman. I mean, I could flip it and say from a man's perspective, but I'm gonna say from a woman's perspective, me observing. I use the analogy of a woman got a big purse on, right? She got the biggest purse she owns, right? And if over time she finds herself, she's kind of putting things in that purse about the relationship that ain't working.
It's a
right?
good analogy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, in any case, I'll come back to that analogy. But in any case, the communication stops. The they're what they end up saying actually doesn't support the things that need to basically sustain a relationship. Meaning, you actually hear them talking about those things are not working versus those things are working, or even to the point of if you're talking about a project, something that you were working on that you needed to fix, right? You'd be talking about fixing it. But if the conversation is about a demolition, it's about let's tear this thing down, right? Or let me break down to you why it's not working. Well, that's your clue. And I guess one of the good things is a woman will let you know pretty early on if things is going good or bad. All you gotta do is listen. And I could just about in any relationship, if I'm sitting there and I'm playing witness to the couple, I can let the man know you in trouble. you need to get to work. Yeah, so
I
think
gotcha.
the pretty signs sis.
So Byron, quick question. Then I'm going to go over to Jeff. Do you think it's because, and again, keeping it with Christ, that we give grace, but we stop giving grace, or do you think it's just because, man, because you talk about how we walk in, we love that purse we bought. Okay, we knew we bought that purse. We were excited about that purse. But over time, like you're saying, I know you're going to use it later. We no longer look at that purse the same. Is it because we no longer look at that situation, that person the same way because we no longer give grace? We're pickier. We judge more. Or do you think it's just because we're growing?
I think it depends on the task that you're literally whether you're trying to accomplish at that time. When you find yourself wanting to be in a relationship, you are focused on finding those things or identifying those things that you're attracted to. When you're in the relationship, you're not looking for those things. If you're unhappy outside of what's going on in a relationship, just you yourself are unhappy, right? You start looking for other, to find reasons in that person and that other person. And oftentimes it really doesn't need to go any further than yourself, right? I mean, that's the hardest thing. That's been one of the hardest things for me to learn.
Okay.
Early in my relationship, sis, I really believed that I was flawed in thinking that this other person was responsible for my happiness. And it took a minute for me to realize that is not the case. Absolutely.
We're going to talk about that. I'm going to pause you right there because not going to go into another episode, but we're going to talk about that. Jeff, I'm coming to you. Man, same question, for you as well. And I'm even going to do the tagline of the grace, but when are some signs that it's time maybe to reassess the relationship, business, friendship, or a relationship? Go ahead.
I'll touch on two, and the business part is just real quick. Throughout my career, when I would get up, I've had jobs, and I worked for First USA Bank and a guy named Rich Garside in Dick Bay. I used to float out of my house in the morning. I was heading to work, and I could not wait to get there. And when I hit the floor, I knew I was home, and it was an amazing experience from some amazing leadership that had a culture that was about, here's what you have to do from a structural standpoint in our business, but here's what you have to do good business. Like, I was a banker, the book is this thick, but Rich said, protect the assets of the bank and do the right thing for the customer. Those were our only two rules. That's what I went to work with every day. I knew I could solve any problem, which didn't necessarily mean always giving them what they wanted, but I had the power to make decisions that could finalize, a circumstance. So in business, it was always when I felt like I could not give them 100%, and I knew I couldn't get 100% from them because we weren't on the same page.
Wow.
The beautiful thing was when I left that job in particular, I told the CFO, I'm like, hey, today's the day. And he's like, tell me what you want to do and I'll make the phone calls. And he appreciated that because I'd given him 100 every day. 5.5 years I was there, I gave him 100 every day. So I think from a business standpoint, it's when you can't give as much as you want from the company, that's time for you to make a change or decide something else. In a relationship, the key indicators for me when I look back at my failed relationships were the communication change. We stopped talking about the emotional ties and the things that connected us and started talking about stuff.
That's what Byron was saying.
What'd you do today? How was your day? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? There was nothing like, hey, how was your day? What'd you accomplish today? What impacted you today? There's this thing coming up and I'd really love to experience that with you. All that conversation went away and it was just every day coming together, talking about stuff, and then also I think I think you can tell the difference between forced connections and the connection that you had when you were like crazy about that person. All you could think about was, what can I do to make them happy and to make their lives better? And then all of a sudden, when things start to change, you start trying to replicate that behavior.
Wow.
But you can't replicate it on purpose.
Right.
You can't force that interaction. You can do the same actions, but the content and how it's delivered and how it's received is different. So I think you start to feel that. And, if you want to be successful in relationships, when you notice that, you address it. But I think what we often do is we sit back thinking that perhaps it will change.
Okay. Pause there. So pause there because we're going to kind of go into that a little bit. And that was really good what you said. Let me tell you what I heard is that we stop talking about the things that solidify, or let's use solidify the connection. We avoid words that connect us to this person. Okay. Yeah. And I coach a lot of couples, and that's the one thing they struggle with. When things aren't good, they do not. They're scared to say things that lead into things that show that they want to stay in. They want to avoid the connector talk. Okay. And so, Quinn, I want to go to you, which is why I love this show, is because we, now we've got single and married, it's covering all scopes. And so I love this situation because you could come from, a business perspective like Jeff, or, relationship, or even both. But what are some indicators that you feel like, okay, it's time, to maybe really assess the situation if it's time to walk away or leave?
Yeah, thanks, honey. And I will never claim to be the relationship expert. Okay. I do have some experience. I think building on what Jeff and Byron has said, in a relationship, I think the key indicator is when the heart turns. See, I think the things that they have described are indicators of a heart shift, right? And when someone's heart is now not seeking after that person, not finding joy in that person, right? Not finding fulfillment in that person, the communication stops. The self-interest becomes more apparent, right? Or the self-centeredness or self-focus. Those to me are external indicators that the heart has shifted. Because you can go, honey, we've been through periods where we didn't communicate. We've been through periods where things have been tried and tested. right? And if but I've not seen the heart turn. You see what I'm saying? We were focused on trying to reconnect, even though there may have been difficulties at time. So I think relationships go through some of those things. They're going to go through times when um, communication is going to be difficult, or you're not going to want to serve the other person. You're going to want to do your own thing a little bit, or get your own time. But I think it's really, when you see a number of those things together, then there may be an indicator that the heart's turned, and that, I think, that's a deeper issue in a relationship.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And you know what? And I think I heard several things from you guys. And so I'm just going to kind of do my little needle weeding to bring together and add little TA salt on top of it. It's really when you see more of the bad and you have difficulty finding the good. I heard that, where I also heard that you start to focus more inward. I heard that on you and what you need than outward, what you can give and what you can do for that person. I heard that. And I also will say that I want to add as well, and let me back up. When you also feel, and I heard this too, that you are no longer giving 100%. And you know what's so crazy about that? When I hear that, I think about me and you, Quint. This summer, I'm sorry, bro, I could not give you 100%. No, I'm sorry. And we're going to bring that, and you and I have committed that we're going to bring that, probably coming up in a couple of weeks. But man, my heart had turned. I wasn't giving you but maybe 20% just to honor the Lord, And I was like, it's done, so I know, but that's the starting part. That's really what leads you down that road. And for me, it is when your situation, and I really want people to listen up on this one, because of course there's a bigger message that we're leading to, you guys, as we get ready to launch the new year. And you've kind of heard the metamorphosis is the whole focus, is when I stop seeing the things that I know that God worked hard to create in me. When I start to see myself regress back, when I start to see a bad side of myself, a worse side of myself, when now this situation is nothing but bringing out the worst in me, the non-God in me. It's causing me to be, constantly like a negative person, or now I'm always mad and angry, or I'm even dark and depressed and sad and crying, where I just no longer can see the Christ in me. Or even what God has worked so hard to bring me through. If all of a sudden I find myself where I know where I'm at, but I'm all the way back. I'm repeating things that I know that I've grown from, or I'm in a period now in my life that I know what happens next because I've been here and God's delivered me from it. I know that's really where, it's time to really think about becoming unhooked. And to me, that's business. Now, Quint, you don't have to expand on this because we're going to go to the next question. Don't feel that's just relationships, because I saw Quint go through this when he was transitioning out of the military. Because of the things that was happening in the military, he could no longer see Christ in there. He could no longer see how people were acting, and it just started to change him, where he was always mad and upset and frustrated. And if anybody knows Quint, it takes a lot to get him there. So even in business, when you start to see that, and you feel like you're in a situation where you feel hooked and you can't get out, and you feel trapped and you feel you're suffocating, losing air, it is definitely time to reassess that situation. So I just kind of want to tie that up. And so let's go to the first question here. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship where the relationship became toxic, even possibly became codependent? Okay, where now either where there was you or the other person, their whole identity, their whole future, their well-being, their air, their sense of, security and direction was all about you, or where you were like that with somebody, that they just enamored you so much you lost yourself. And those, I will say, those who know my story, y'all know I've been there, where you give up your whole identity. It's whatever they want. You forget you, and you find yourself in this web, whether it's career or it's a relationship. And so I'm going to go first to you now, Jeff. Have you ever been in a codependent, toxic relationship, or where maybe it was even, something that you found yourself there? And I think that's part of the next question a little bit as well, but you decide how you want to cover it.
I have. I dated a woman that I'd known for 20 years. And we used to periodically just catch up and talk about the kids and go to movies and hang out. And, she had a child years before by someone that I knew. And then at some point we decided to date. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that there's only 2 women in my life that I ever dated that I don't keep in some sort of contact with, whether we don't have a healthy relationship. Mm-hmm. This relationship in particular, by the end of it, she had me believing that I was crazy. That all the stuff that was going wrong and all the things that I was feeling and all the things that were disrupting her life were all my fault. And for a moment, I believed it.
Come on.
Sometimes you look at people and, the grace that I, bestowed on her was that I recognized that the loss of her father was tragic for her. And that for her brother getting in trouble, she viewed all that as men leaving her. So her big fear was being left. And so her way of dealing with conflict was to leave. She wouldn't stay and fight. But the net result of that was that she developed all these behaviors that only made for short-term relationships. They were super dynamic when you first got involved, and she was an amazing woman. When you got away from the relationship, she was an amazing woman. But I got to the point to where I began to question my own sanity, my own ability to function, my own ability to raise a child, all these things that I'd been doing successfully my entire life.
Wow.
And I kept thinking, because if you listen to her, it sounded reasonable.
You're all like, wait a minute, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I just stood back and realized that I'd worked really hard in my career and to be a good father and to be a good son. And there was no way that existed in the same place with the things that she told me about myself existed. And then when I reflected on those things didn't even exist. So yeah, I've been in a relationship and it was toxic, and it was, to where I spent all this time explaining myself.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, I'm explaining myself, like always
being questioned, always having to have a long drawn out conversation.
Yeah. And then, interject a friend of mine who was a therapist, and she was like, well, what you're describing to me without putting it on one person is narcissism. That's what that behavior is.
Come on, whole nother topic we need to talk about, y'all, another day.
Yeah. So when I was in that relationship, and the hard part for me when it came to the breakup part, though, it was like I didn't want to stop because I knew what was hurting her. And I never, ever in my entire life tried to fix somebody.
Right.
But for some reason, I
just started feeling responsible.
Yeah. I felt like because I knew, and she'd been forthcoming with what hurt her, that I had a responsibility to try to be that guy who wasn't the one who left.
Oh, wow. That's deep. That's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep.
So yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, that is tough. And again, that bigger message that we're kind of unveiling and talking about. So basically, and she looked to you to be the one to make her better, that dictated her life, her well-being, her sound mind, her hurts, her pains, her joy, her everything is basically what you're kind of saying. And then made you responsible if things weren't how they needed to be or how she wanted them in her life. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. Because we're going somewhere, y'all. All right. And so, Quinn, let me come to you. Have you ever been in a situation, because it can happen at work. Woo, I can tell you a story where I got 2 to 3 stories where because of what I did for people and the things that God used me to do and blessings, it's where I had somebody tell me, I own you. Woo, I mean, we're talking, it can happen in business. But Quinn, have you ever dealt in a situation where there was in business or a friendship, or even a relationship where you felt it had become codependent or toxic?
I can't think of a time at work or any relationship that I've been in that has been toxic or codependent. I've had some bad bosses. I've had some folks I didn't care to work for. I've worked in some environments that were. I've worked for a couple of generals, and one of those was a very difficult period of my time in my life. We were at war. It was a surge in Iraq. Just a very, very difficult, high stress period. But it wasn't. I wouldn't call it toxic, but it was very, very difficult as far as just a work scenario.
Okay.
As far as personal relationships, no, I haven't been in any that were toxic or codependent. Probably the closest would be in our marriage, wanting to put myself aside or become something different from what I was as I move forward in marriage, and realizing that there's some good about who I was, and I do need to bring that in. But that, I don't think that's necessarily codependent or toxic.
No, and again, it always sucks when your wife is on the show with you, because she knows all your business. So if you can't remember, she can remember. Man, what about working for a colonel? That, my God, what it did to you, that was toxic, bro. It was toxic for you. It was toxic for me. It was toxic for our marriage. There were some major things going on in that relationship. Do you want me to remind you?
No, I know what you're talking about. but I'm telling you that the challenge I had previous to that, working for the general, was worse on me than that was. That scenario had that situation had me working for that boss, deployed, first year of marriage, the newness of all that, trying to fight through a number of different things. That was a very distinctly different type of challenge to live through.
Yeah, it almost made you want to give up on your career. You had a couple of moments like that where it was so bad and so toxic, where somebody tried to tell you who you were, your worth, your value, that you just wanted to get out the military and go do something else, right?
There's been a couple times that I wanted to do that. And I can go back. Like I said, I've worked for some bad commanders. When I was a young lieutenant, I got the bad OER. I was about done. I considered getting out of the Army back then, but
toxic.
I decided to stay. Yeah, I decided to stay in.
Yes. So the reason why I say that is because that's another example of a toxic relationship when it starts, and Jeff kind of touched on that, to really make you feel like you are nothing based on what you know. It's what they tell you you are, that how they see you, what they tell you you can do, who you're gonna become, what you're not gonna become, and to really just intensely, put you in situations where they even try to affect your life in a way, because of what they think about your worth. That's a toxic relationship. And again, that's a whole nother show, because I know everything about you. Byron, man, have you ever been in a toxic, or what would be a codependent type relationship?
Yeah, most definitely. I think I was in the relationship with the sister of the lady that Jeff described. It was all familiar. I'm hoping sister, not the same woman.
I gotta do my own laughs on that one.
we might have to talk offline. Most definitely, and it's kind of started off as just being friends, did a short brief moment of dating, and then just trying to maintain a friendship can even be painful, can be toxic, because the friendship ends up evolving into that codependency, but it's supported by your insecurities, physical needs, emotional needs, or emotional insecurities. And what I mean by that is, I'm most attracted to something that is not, that's broke, right? That needs my help. that
Mm-hmm.
needs to be
Mm-hmm.
worked on. If it's easy, or if it's too easy, I've made the mistake, just because something was too easy, to not put into it as much as I would one that is dysfunctional. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's really kind of messed up, right? But that's really
Mm-hmm.
truly, I am most involved working the hardest for a person who is narcissistic, who
Wow.
doesn't really appreciate me, right? So I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm determined to prove them that you are missing out, that I am much better than you can
Like we need
comprehend.
to prove it to them for some reason. Something kicks
Yes,
in that you gotta prove it to them.
and it becomes a hook. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
realize, like, wow, I can make him dance,
Come on.
and I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
and it becomes something that they absolutely will resort to, and don't and the hardest part is when it comes to trying to communicate and trying to work it out, so on and so forth. They don't want that,
Yeah.
right? It's not something they become. It seems, and I've only been in one toxic, really truly toxic relationship. I mean, I'm still friends with this person. Like Jeff, I'm still friends with just about anyone I've dated or been some type of friend with. One of your questions, I do not break up badly at all. So I've been able to always maintain friendships. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it is, and it's hard to walk away from. You know, Listening to your friends, your family, sis, I've talked to you and Q about this friendship, and it's just a friendship, and it's hard to walk away from it because it's broken. It's something that I'm not accustomed to
Mm-hmm.
having bad relationships.
And it's so crazy. And I'm going to go here for all of you guys. And then, do you agree that it then starts to, and I've got one of my soul sisters on, she's kind of tapping on what I don't want to go deep in, but I got to go here. And do you find yourself by being in that relationship that it almost kind of puts you in a place, and I don't want to say wooing, but you find yourself almost in this distress of pleasing them. They become the total focus and the object of your air and your well-being, almost like they have consumed you. She said witchcraft is what she said, but almost put you in a place where it's just your whole mind, your peace, your stress. You're so worried about what they think and what they're thinking, and if you did it right, if you didn't do it right, and then even the stresses of the relationship. Do you find yourself almost kind of being pulled into it, sucked into it? Jeff, do you find that in that situation, that's kind of where you were? It was a consumption almost.
In relationships when I was young, yes.
Mm-hmm.
My filter's completely different now. It just is. Used to gotta go is short because everything that we do, unfortunately, I didn't learn this till late, but everything you do has repercussions for not only you, but the people that you hold close and the people
That's
that
true.
you hold dear and the people that you
Mm-hmm.
raise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so there is that need, but my filter goes through, is their need bigger than the needs of the people that I already have in my circle that I care about?
That's good. That's
And
good.
if they aren't,
Mm-hmm.
um, I've been told by one girlfriend, ex at least, that my apparent or outward perspective of not needing someone
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is challenging for women. And
You're
because
too independent, they feel.
yeah, when I make the choice that my family, my sanity, and my children are more important,
Mm-hmm.
and no matter what you bring to the table,
Mm-hmm.
these are more important, and what you're bringing to the table right now just doesn't work for me. It's challenging,
Yeah.
because sometimes all that's needed is for that person to give me that space and respect that, and we could probably move forward. But most of them think that it's, you don't want to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
No, I want to be in a relationship, but I don't need you to be happy. I don't need you to fulfill something that I think is missing.
Oh,
What
we're
I
tapping
want
on
to do
something.
is to have you and to add
Yes.
to my life and for me to
Okay.
add to yours.
Okay.
But
Okay.
if with what I have, with what God's blessed me, I'm happy. I'm great. I'm grateful. And I've been blessed considering all the things that the world's got out in front of it, and for my family to be intact and healthy and doing the things that we're doing. So I've there's the relationships that I find that after breaking up, that I gravitate back towards.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that I do it in a healthy manner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not for the purpose of rekindling a relationship or dating or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But we met, there was something valuable that we found in each other. And once we got past the dating and whatever conflict we had within that, if we can spend time and still get those things from each other,
Sure.
it's healthy, you know. So
Sure.
I'm not, you know, I guess I'm a little bit of a control freak. You know, I like to be in control of how I do an impact.
I didn't pick that up at all, Jeff. I'm sorry. I didn't. Matter of fact, I see some good in that. It's a place we got to get to,
Yeah.
as believers and followers of Christ, is getting to a place where we become, independent from the world.
Yeah.
Okay. To where everything, when it comes to who we are, we can be okay because we're dependent, on Christ. But there's this unplugging process, which is why we're talking all this out. And so let's go to the next question. What's one situation where someone broke up with you, and how did you really handle it? Now, Jeff, you kind of touched on this a couple episodes back. It kind of touched on it, I think, twice actually since we've been in this show. So, you get to expound a little bit more, add something you didn't, or somebody who wasn't here when you said it while you were single. We talked about it. But man, I really kind of want to know that. What's one situation where someone broke up with you, and let's just bring it real and raw. How did you handle it? Were you good at it? Or did you do begging? Or did you say, no, don't leave me? Or did you say, bounce then? What did you say? It could be a job. Hold on. It could be a job. It could be a person. It could be anything. I'm going to hold off on you, Jeff, because you're a little bit too ready. I can tell. Byron, I'm going to come over to you. And then I'm going to go to Quint. I can tell, Jeff, you're real ready. So, Byron.
Oh, man.
Go. So, talk to me, Byron.
Right. That's just, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I can remember all breakups really well.
Go, Byron.
How about I talk about a good one? Can I talk about a good? That's not one of my questions, right? Can I talk about a good breakup?
You know what? We have three more, and no, I think you're good to talk about that. But the question is, what's one situation where someone broke up with you, and how did you handle it?
Okay. Well, then that I think it fits.
Okay.
I had a situation where hadn't been dating that long. We were really trying to work it out. We were both coming off of other relationships, and just kind of discovered commonality and interest in that, and bad mouthing the people that were crazy enough to not to be with us any longer. And since I got at least some people, I'm not talking to everyone that have broke up with me that I talk bad about, but having fun with it, yeah, having that in common, talking about that struggle of breaking up with someone you've been with for a while.
Yeah.
Ended up one day, just out of the clear blue, took me to a nice Italian restaurant. We were getting full, drinking wine. Right?
Oh no!
And I'm thinking, oh, this evening is going to end well.
We're going to the next
level. Good. All of a sudden it got like real quiet, and I was just thinking, this would be the perfect time to say that things really aren't kind of progressing like I thought they would. I was like, what?
Wow.
I was like, wow. But then I had to stop and think. I said, okay, that's kind of cool. I mean, you wind and dine, and you say, hey. I'm
at least going out strong.
I was like, that's very mature of you. All right, I can dig it. That's cool. Yeah. So like, we stopped there, we're still friends. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. It worked out. That actually is the best breakup I had. Was that one to wine and dine. Jokes, had fun, and then just to be mature about it and say, hey, we're both not really in a good place, and finding out, to be honest, truly both of us were having separation problems, meaning we hadn't completely separated from that other person. It needed to happen, and that was kind of a follow-up conversation we had. It didn't end right then. We ended up having another conversation uh, being genuinely honest as to why she came to that decision. And it
Well,
was
that's
because
good.
she was still going back and forth with with her guy, and I was
Yeah.
still having conversations, and hadn't wasn't and that person was kind of flaky with me,
Yeah.
so it
Wow.
wasn't a good time.
That's
Yeah,
good. That's actually a really
yeah,
good story, Byron, because I feel like,
yeah, yeah.
and we'll go there in here in a second. Quint, I'm going to go to you because when it comes to, I'm going to say this about my husband, when it comes to relationships, history, when it comes to experience, the man that the Lord brought me doesn't have a lot. God knew, look, you don't need any experience going in with this girl. You don't need baggage, bro. God was looking out for you, Quinn. She's got her.
Just
She's
put
got
your
enough.
armor on.
She got enough for both of y'all, Quinn. You don't need a lot of experience. I don't know, but you don't. But I'm going to ask this question. Have you ever had a situation where you remember it? I think I know the one you're going to share. Where I know that one is where they broke up with you, or it was a breakup, and how did you handle it?
Yeah, I can actually think of two. Um, shoot, just this question brings this to mind. It was when I was a captain at Fort Benning, I was getting physical therapy on my knee that I just had surgery on, and everybody was wanting me to ask the physical therapist out. So I'm like, sure, okay. So we went out once or twice, and she decided that she wasn't interested in me, and I'm like, what do you mean you ain't interested in me,
Because
man?
God
I'm a
said you
stud.
belong to
I'm all
Tracy.
that. Yeah. I'm all that in a bag of chips. No, I didn't say that, but yeah, she saw someone who was totally focused on the Army. I was an
Mm,
instructor at Fort Benning,
mm,
teaching young
mhm,
captains and lieutenants, and that wasn't what she was looking for. She was not
mm,
looking for
mm,
someone in. I mean, she was a medical professional, so she
mhm,
was around a very different group of people than I was. And so that's one. And
mhm.
um, I just took that in stride.
No,
Okay,
you
all
did
right,
not, Quint. Let me tell you all
whatever.
the real deal. So it's like this. Quint was so upset about it that when we met was on a dating site that he decided to not tell me that he was a commander getting ready to deploy because every single person that he told said I can't do this relationship. So he just decided to omit that
No,
because he was
this
tired
one
of going
didn't
through it.
have
He said, I'm
that
tired of
impact.
getting my feelings hurt.
This one didn't have that impact. That
This
was
one.
that was from on that dating site. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with military guys. This was way before that. This is back when Captain Arnold, he could date around, but no, she was just interested in something different. And I mean, the same thing. What you refer to sort of happened when I was at Fort Stewart. I was a
Right.
major. The war had started.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
We started seeing this woman. It was intimate.
Mm-hmm.
I was not looking for anything, long term because I was deploying, and she was right. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she was looking for that, and she just asked one day, "What are we doing?" And I didn't give her the right answer because my mind wasn't thinking long term. And that did it. She made her mind up, and that was the end of that one. But
Yeah.
that's it's all good.
And I love those stories. And of course, I'm just loving, to mess with you, Quint, because I really do. I've learned you, and I know I have books on you. You just don't know it. I write down what you say and put volume number 20, and put it on the shelf. But I really, I wanted to talk about career, because I think there's people here. It's not just about relationships. It's when the breakup of either having to walk away from a career, getting, fired. How does that go? And what we find, statistics show that there's a higher number of people who just don't break up well, and when they are broken up with, it causes them to feel like they're not good enough. Something's wrong with them. Even it says when the relationship is bad, that if the other person breaks up with them, they then start to feel different and start to overanalyze themselves and forget who they are and the greatness that they are. Or when they break up with someone, if that person doesn't handle it well, one of two things happen. They either get mad at that person, because it wasn't an easy breakup, or they walk away second guessing themselves if they should have stayed in the relationship. because of what happened when the breakup happened. And so, Jeff, I'm ready for you. I'm ready for you to lay it down, Jeff. So this is a good question. So go.
This one's actually hot off the presses from this summer, actually.
Okay. I knew to wait on you, bro. Something spiritually told me to wait. The Holy Spirit said,
first,
let
I will
Jeff
tell you
in
that
this.
Dating during COVID is horrible.
Yeah, it is.
We had, this person I had known for a good bit of time.
Look at Byron's like, dude.
I'd known her for a couple of years and always thought she was, amazing, beautiful, athletic, all the things that, you look for. And, I had some people over and some to watch the UFC fights. And when everybody started to leave, like her and this girl that I used to hang out with, both were like hanging out. It was like turned into a contest. And but I discovered that she had an interest in spending more time with me. And so we started dating Valentine's Day, actually, this year. And then COVID happened and we both had kids.
Oh,
and
wow.
so it turned into not an opportunity for us to figure out whether our kids could develop an opportunity to meet each other, because they're both only children effectively. There's 20 years between my kids. So Sophia's an only child. And her child's only child. And so we had the two of us trying to get to know each other. And then we had a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old or 9-year-old.
9-year-old
trying to figure that out too. And, and all of our time together wasn't going to dinner, going to the park, going to these things, because all that was gone. So it was her house, my house, backyard.
Yeah.
So we never got to the point where I call like full stretch, where you're in a relationship and you're both running and you're learning things about each other, and life happens and work happens and these things happen, and you start being able to kind of put together a map for who they are and how you can relate to them. And so we never got to that point. And so we never really got an opportunity to really develop the friendship part either, because it was like we were put together as this mini family. And then, she called me one day and we're supposed to be heading to some friend's house, and she's like, I just don't think this is going to work. And here's my brilliant response. Okay, cool. I'm heading to Bronxville. Click. and it kind of went, because in my head, it was like the last thing in the world I'd ever want to do is have a conversation with someone where my purpose was to convince them that they needed to be in a relationship with me.
Okay.
And she didn't call to talk about something that was wrong. She didn't call about the way she felt. She called and said that it wasn't working for her. And not, it wasn't working, let's talk about it, or it wasn't.
What can we do? It's over.
And I think oftentimes we don't respect people enough when they're open and blunt. We think because we have continued feelings for that person that there's this thing to fight for. And what you're not respecting is the clarity that person just shared with you.
Right.
So the things that are missing for you in that moment might be missing because they're just not ever going to be there. And it was good. In that moment, I made it good.
Yeah.
In the weeks to come, it wasn't good because, there's people talk about this closure thing. And for me, it wasn't closure, but the connection for us initially when we had our conversation was we'd always wanted to explore what a friendship would look like for the two of us.
Yeah.
And we never had that opportunity. So it became weird as to whether that was ever going to exist or not. Good thing is that we still continue to communicate.
Yeah.
We still, talk to each other like human beings, and, there was never any ill feelings. But, that was, there's 2 breakups in my entire life that were truly, truly difficult for me. And it was that one because I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
But then, I didn't try to dig into it. I accepted that. And for a moment, I questioned me, but then realized that, she has her needs and what she wants. And my joy for her is for her to find happiness. So she can only find that by getting out of a relationship with someone that she hasn't found that happiness with.
Right.
And then, when I was younger, I had a young woman come to me that I was dating, amazing, top of her class at UT. but there was 9 years between us. And she says, my lease is up. I'm not signing another lease. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. So we're moving in together. And my response was, you're going to want to go to spring break next year and hang out with your sorority sisters and
because of where she was in her life, right?
Yeah. And she goes, well, if that's how you feel, I'm done.
Wow.
And we had a difficult time over the course of the years because we ran into each other after she had married her high school sweetheart and gone through all these other things and realized that we probably had a missed opportunity. And for a long time, that was, I regretted making that choice. But then I began to start owning choices that I made as growth opportunities. And it changed the way I looked at things and changed the way, now I know what that looks like and what that feels like. And so I have the ability to make different choices moving forward.
And let me say this, because it's, I kind of want to pause where you're at and come and touch up on it, but because I feel the need to throw this out there. And I guess, man, Byron, you're the person I got to come to for this one. I know that, I think the question may need to be rephrased. When you've been in a relationship that you've invested your all in, when you've invested time, you've done things together, you've even changed the way you did things together. But let's go to that kind of relationship, and when it came to the breakup, okay, how did you handle it? How did it affect you? And I want to go to that kind of relationship just because I think for a lot of people where the struggle is at is either because they either put too much in the beginning without learning the person. Jeff, Byron, Quint, y'all have touched on that on other shows, that they just jumped in. They fell hard. They fell quick. They gave all of themselves too soon. Where we talked earlier, they looked at this person to be the center, to be the answer. Now I'm going to have joy. Now I'm going to love myself. Now I feel like I am somebody because somebody wants me. I think those become very difficult. But let's talk about a relationship where there really was your heart invested, time, whether it was a marriage, or it was somebody that you just really hoped and believed that there was going to be a future. That's what you were walking towards. So I'll come back to you, Jeff, because I know you have a story there. And so, Byron, I want you to talk about that, because I think we got probably a lot of people who want to hear, well, what happens when your heart is so connected, but it's time to go. They broke up with you, and they say, look, I got to go, or they don't love you anymore, but you're still connected. How do you handle that?
Yeah, I've probably got two of those relationships I could relate to. One, of course, was my marriage. Yeah, that was a 20+ year commitment. Growth. We were high school sweethearts. So for that to not work out, we had both invested a lot of time and commitment to each other. So that part's hard, right? That's the one where, as much time as you put in it, you don't get to end that overnight. Mm-hmm. It took probably, but married 20-something years, it took at least a decade to even begin to think that I was moving on, right? The reality was, 10 years out, it was still heavy on my heart and still there in any relationship. I mean, I would literally be in relationships talking about that relationship, my marriage, with someone that I was serious with. And sometimes I get called out on it. Someone might have an appreciation for it, but other people would be like, can we talk about somebody else or something else, but that was so much of my life. It's like the military will come up, in your conversations a lot because it's a big part of your life. And so, my 20+ marriage was a big part of my life, and I defined who I was and how I am today based on, what that basically, I learned a lot from that relationship and from that breakup. That it's not always sometimes, what you think as much as it is what you do. And I and I truly believe in that. Because you can talk it all you want, talk it like it's good, talk it like it's bad, but are you really doing something that supports that relationship? Are you doing things together, or are you just two individuals that are separate and just have this agreement, that it's become, right?
Right.
Jeff kind of touched on it, and because you have those phases, and true enough, in 21 years of relationship, you see that those highs and lows, right?
Right.
But
Right.
but I but but I have I'm probably one of the most hopeful persons when it comes to a relationship. I always feel that right around the corner there's good things for us. I do. I mean, I'm that way about any relationship. If I'm in a relationship with a person that loves me and did love me a lot at one time, let's say initially,
Mm-hmm.
truly made me believe that,
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe that I can always regain that. If I deserve not to be loved that way again, I feel like I could do the things to revisit that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other situation, you know, somewhat hard as well, in the sense of putting a lot into it. But sometimes people, unbeknownst to you, you don't know that you're kind of that filler for someone. You
Mm-hmm.
feel like
Mm-hmm.
they're everything and they're all your focus and your
Yeah.
commitment. You're looking to
Mm-hmm.
you're pouring something into this with the expectation of return. Q was honest and said, I was in a situation where wasn't looking for anything out of it. Well, for some reason, I think the one lasting impact of my divorce, let's say, is I don't go into relationships. I haven't dated a lot. Matter of fact, I have not. This is kind of, I know this is hard to profess on air, but I haven't been on a date in 10 years,
Yeah.
right? And I've been in relationships, friendships, that kind of thing, and I could define those different type of ways, but I haven't started a relationship with the intent that I want this to flourish or go into something,
Mm-hmm.
because I know what I have to have up front, what they have to feel about me, and I need to feel about them. If that's not there, it's short lived, and I just don't want to go to that short lived. I'm that person that's looking to connect and for it to be a long term relationship.
Okay.
So it,
Okay.
it has lasting impacts for sure.
Okay. Okay. Quint, I'm gonna go to you because again, I want this to be expounded. Man, 29 years in the military, and it was time for you to walk away. And again, I'll let you kind of expand on what you want to expand on how that affected you. Especially where you didn't necessarily see those effects. Right when you got out, because God already had another job for you. But you did, I think, really start to see those effects, in the very beginning when you were transitioning, and even more so this summer. How did you deal with the separation? When you're in the military, you're hooked. I mean, it's one of those they own you kind of things, like for real. So when you get out of the military, and this is what you've known, I mean, we're talking literally teenager going to West Point and then a military career. You always like to cut off West Point, and I said, bro, that's 29 years. Stop cutting off West Point because that's where it started. That's a long time to give. That's a relationship. That was the wife. And so how did you come to terms, because that's who you were and what you knew your life, and those struggles that you had with that. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it consumed. It took up over half of my life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Still more than half of my life, and it's a way of life, right? It's more than just a lifestyle. It's a way of life, and deciding to walk away from that took a lot of hard decisions because I had some goals, and quite frankly, I met those goals. I was able to make the rank of full colonel. I was able to serve for 25 years. I never had a great desire to go be a general officer or do anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd seen enough of that coming up through the Army.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had met my goals, but I still had a desire to know I was good enough, right? And so that showed itself in my desire to compete for command, brigade command, compete for the next school level. Am I still in the hunt? Am I in the top of my year groups because there's only so many that get selected for those things. And I had to decide to let all that go and put all that down, because it, quite frankly, it became not as important as family. To me, I mean, I saw what the Army was doing to our marriage, and I just said, I would rather have a long marriage than another 5 years in the Army.
So, but how did that affect you when it came to this is your sense of security, your sense of being? This is what you know. It's like a marriage, and then all of a sudden, it not being there, and this is even where you get your identity from. So, where did you find yourself, even with your identity, and confidence and all of those things, when this is what gave you that tending to back, reassurance, like in a relationship? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of soul searching, so to speak, of what now who am I outside of the Army? Who am I? That was difficult because I didn't know, because I joined the Army at the age of 17. When I reported to West Point, I was 17 years old, and so like you said, it was for almost 30 years. That's all I knew, and 10 years of that was at war. I mean, heck, I didn't even know who. I'd lost some of my identity of who I was in the Army prior to the war, even. And so there was, I would say, a crisis of identity, so to speak. And now, moving forward into civilian life, this new job, what was this going to be like? I mean, in the Army, we had a structure. In the Army, we had discipline. In the Army, we had organization.
Like routine.
I'm going over, right. Routine. I had to work out every morning. I went into the office, and the day was structured. I walk into this civilian job, and half of that's very different, or the routine is very different. You don't have the same sense of mission per se, or the same culture that you have in the military.
Sure.
And it's
transition.
The transition is very difficult. And again, on top of that, why am I doing it? I'm doing it because my family is more important than the Army, and trying to juggle those balls. It was challenging. It was very challenging.
Yeah.
My identity had been wrapped up in who I was in the Army, but I was not that anymore. So now there's this search for who am I?
Right, and your worth and your value. Because here you had a rank.
Yeah.
So to come now into this new relationship, it made you start to, really question who you were. Was that just because of this, or was this really who you were? And to get that confidence again, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I was this level of a leader in the Army, and now I'm in a very different world, a very different environment. What level am I now? And I had to go back and start to do some of the things that I did when I was a young captain and a lieutenant. That I had put those things away because I was the colonel. I didn't have to do that stuff anymore.
And kind of starting all over.
Yeah, I had to reconnect with some of that stuff, like I said, and rework my identity. And you're right, my value.
That's it right there. Rework your identity. Because when you break up from something that you're really hooked into, whether it's something that you made a choice to be in, or you found yourself there, when it's time to transition, you're hooked. Whatever it was that got you there, whatever, it was that kept you there, now you got to transition out. You got to, again, our word, metamorphosis, in order to grow. You needed to grow into something new. You needed to, like you said, make family a priority. You needed to grow into something more. And sometimes we stay in those situations because of a sense of security, belonging, validation. Okay.
I had to redesign what I got fulfillment out of.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
There were certain things in the Army, but now in this new environment, what was I going to get fulfillment out of?
Okay. Well, I know that I'm going to, come to Jeff, but I'm going to pose the last question before we, end. And I'm going to give each one of you guys, let's say 3 minutes to answer. And I'm going to do some shout outs to give you a chance to prepare, so you don't feel like I'm necessarily just throwing it on you. But, we're talking about hooked. And I think that it's important to say many people get here. Almost everybody gets here at least once or twice, or they find themselves even in a situation where now they even feel hooked to, we could go here, they have broken up and now they feel hooked to singlehood. And how do they get unhooked? How do they walk out of that? How do they believe, that there's going to be another day, another thing, so that they continue to walk in that? Because some people will actually stay in relationships or at a job just because they feel like nothing better will come along. Okay, this is it. So I need to stay. Okay, I don't know if I can do it without this, and we start to question, what's going to happen tomorrow, and that belief and faith, and we put it again, our faith and belief in this situation, this job, this relationship, this person. This is where we get our sense of being, from. And so my question I'm going to ask, because I'm just going to do some shout outs real quick as we close the show, is what's one thing that you feel if somebody was in a situation where they feel hooked, they feel stuck, they feel trapped, or they know they need to leave, but they can't, whether it's because of kids, or how am I going to pay the bills, or man, I'm worried, am I going to be able to stand on my own 2 feet, or anything like that, job or whatever. We talked about what is something that would identify that maybe it's time to become unhooked, to break up, because maybe it's gotten toxic, or the identifiers that start to now maybe say those things versus staying. And so I want you to think of one thing that you would tell somebody listening, whether they're live with us tonight or they're going to be watching this over the next couple of days, as long as Facebook allows it to go. They're preventing so many things right now because the hubbub of the election is still going on. But think about that as I just kind of, welcome everybody who's joined and do a shout out. And then I want you guys to be able to answer that. And so with that, I think this is where I stopped off. My Lord, we got a lot of people on. So you guys should be ready by the time that I come to you. Okay, Lord. Man, Joanna, welcome, welcome. So glad that you're here. Nikita Wilkins, welcome. Sharon Stewart, sister, welcome. I think I said that earlier. Teresa Burnell, welcome. David Jernovich, welcome. So glad that you're here. Also, Lacey Jennings, Becky Boggs Loggins, welcome, welcome. Marcos Garcia, welcome. So glad that you're here. Man, Sister Jacqueline, so glad that you're here. Man, I love the Byron. You got a question posed to you. I hope you guys have got a couple of questions here that I'm seeing. Man, Sister Patty, so glad that you're here. Geraldine, man, Isidore, so glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome. Catelia, Unbreakable Deuce. Well, come on. So glad that you're here. Thank you for joining me. Let's see, Samantha Davis Hall, so glad that you're here. Jana Rowe, so glad that you're here. Stephen Caldwell, so glad that you're here. So many people have joining us tonight. Man, Dralim Carbonell, so glad that you're here. Man, and I hope I'm not missing anybody. Ella Fab Lubin, so glad you're here. Sister Sarah Kaufman, man, absolutely love you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Omar Minot, Alexi Montero, Wilbert Velos, man, Selena Donoso, sister, so glad that you're here. Somebody from Czechoslovakia, God, I wish I could say your name. Pio Vacha, so glad you're here. Irene Dillard, so glad that you're here. Dean Jones, my goodness, y'all. Robert Anthony Juarez, so glad that you're here. Patty Montgomery Price, so glad that you're here. Alberto Oliveira, Monica Mitchell, William Morello. My Lord, y'all are in the house. Lana Elise is in the house. Y'all know me. I got to say hi to everybody. Carmel Marie Farley and N.M. Jennings Robinson, so glad that you're here, you guys. Martin Montique, I'm almost at the end. Sandra Walker, Treble Mangar, Max, welcome back, Max. You know I'm going to remember that name. And Stephen Graham, welcome you guys to the Superhero for Christ show. I am Tracy Casey-Arnold, better known as TA. Excited that you guys have joined us tonight. So our last question as we close it out. Jeff, I'm coming to you. What would you say is the one thing that maybe somebody needs to hear if God is saying it's time to transition? I got something more for you, something better, or they know because of what's happening to them, it's time to move, but they feel stuck, they can't. What's one thing you want to share with them before we close?
Probably the first thing would be that it's okay to be scared.
That's good.
You know, and it's okay that you stayed however long you stayed for the reason that you felt you needed to stay. It's a challenge to go into a new space and have to take care of yourself, or have to take children with you and take care of that. Because typically people aren't in a relationship with someone who's toxic, who did not at some point in time bring something to them. So sometimes you've only failed. This is how I view things.
Go. This is good.
I only feel like I failed is when I feel like I've failed to deliver the best I have to the people who depend on me.
That's good. That's good.
Not to myself, not to the other person in the relationship, because if it's the right person, what I deliver to them will increase the people that are in my lives. So understand that feeling that they have is real. There's, but what you have to do is decide is if you want something better or different.
Come on.
And so acknowledge the fact that you feel scared, that you feel like there's a loss. Like, people don't understand when people leave a bad relationship and they walk out the door and turn and look at the person and tell them that they love them, because love isn't dependent upon how someone treats you. Being in love with someone depends on how someone treats you, but having love for that person.
Come on.
So
that's good, Jeff. Let me get some hearts.
The thing that I would tell them is that it's okay to be scared, but do it scared. Life rewards you for going out on a limb, taking a chance when you trust that you're doing the right things for all the right reasons, and that you're taking care of the people who are most important to you.
Man, I love that. That needs to be a tagline. Do it scared, because God's got you. That's really where, again, there's a bigger message we're going to start next year. These are those things. That's really good, Jeff. Thank you for sharing. Keep going if you have something else you want to add.
The one piece that I'll add to that too, though, is that when you're scared, I hear so many people tell me and other people they don't want to be a burden. So instead of asking for that or sharing with that one person who can give you that guidance or maybe give you that hand up so that you can get out of that situation and improve it, here's the thing that I will tell you about people who reach out and offer their assistance. When you don't accept it, it's not you not asking for help or being indebted to someone. You're failing to allow that person to live into their blessing, which is helping you. That's some people's entire life is helping other people.
Yeah.
It's not about them going out and making a bunch of money. It's not about them going out and having all these things.
This is good.
The only way they know how to bless people is to help them with their wisdom, with their time, with their energy, with their love, with their laughter, whatever it might be. So when you share something with someone, open your heart up to be open to allow that person to contribute to you.
That's good.
It's a difficult thing. Alpha males know how difficult that is.
And alpha females, come on.
But yeah, it's okay to feel that way, but allow people to step in and help. Because when you have that circle, you will ward off all those bad choices that you previously made. Because that circle will see it coming.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
To that. So your life will never get to a point to where you're repeating those things, because that's what your tribe and your circle and your prayer circle and your brothers and sisters in Christ are for, is to identify those things. Now, there are nosy people out there that are getting your business that have nothing to do with
That's not what we're talking about, right? Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm talking about the people that you bring into your circle who trust and love and care for you and genuinely just want to help you to be better. So
that's good.
Understand it's okay to be scared. Do it scared and allow people that are around you to contribute to you.
That's really good, because those people will help you to not go back. They'll keep you moving forward, even if it's one step at a time. Thanks, Jeff. I love that. Okay, Byron, what about you? What's something you would say to somebody, that is in a situation? Because let me tell you what, I got many people that I know right now. This couldn't have been a better timed show that was already on the list. But this week, I got many people right now that know that they need to move, that God is showing it, but they're scared. So what would you say to them, Byron?
I'd probably say, depending on the gender, right? I would, I'd probably talk one way to a man and talk to a woman another, right? From a man's perspective, I'll just say me. Being in relationships where I knew I needed to move on, and I was stubborn, to kind of Jeff's point, I didn't want to write it off as a failure. I took it upon myself that, I talk enough, and I want to talk enough. I want to address the problems. That's my approach. I don't want to sweep it under the rug, so to speak. Enough to be a problem that I want to address it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tell the man, the male, and and it would have to do with this, right? When it comes to that relationship, why are you sticking with a relationship? That either she's basically professing that you're not good enough for her,
Mm.
right? So Tyler Perry, I saw him on the news the other day. He said, and I love it. He says, you should expect in a relationship that someone meets you at your worth,
Mm.
right? So if you are at that point in your relationship where that person is not willing to see value or reflect that you are valuable to them, that is the time to go, right? Because if you stay too long, as a man, for example, a woman, can and is very capable of breaking a man down. I mean, that's just y'all got that ability, right? If that's your measure,
Sure,
if you're smart
sure.
enough to not, if you're smart enough and confident enough that you're not letting your worth be defined by that other person,
Mm-hmm.
then fine. You can hang in there. But if you are, I'm guilty of that. That person can bring you can pull you down. I'm watching my clock. So from the woman's perspective, I want to go to my purse kind of thing real quick. One of the things from a woman's perspective, I would say, you've got that big purse, right? That real big purse, it covers your body. You can't even see your body; it's so big. And if you're putting all those things in there, those things that are basically in that relationship have been bad, and that you're not happy with about that man,
Mm.
right? Well, that big purse, it might take you a minute to fill that up, and then more than likely, going back to your earlier points, when it does come time to break up, you're going to be unhappy because you've been lugging around that heavy big purse all the
Mm.
time. And
Mm-hmm.
as you start to take those things out and
Mm-hmm.
expose those things you're unhappy with them,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
have a you basically done damage to probably someone that you loved at one time. Y'all's relationship, when if you would have had a smaller purse, less things in it,
Mm-hmm.
and took those things out and addressed it and decided, this is not good, this is not good. And before it was that big purse and so much of a burden, I think would be a healthier relationship,
That's
from a
good.
woman's perspective. Do
That's
not
good.
do not do not allow yourself to get in a position to where
Yeah,
you have to reflect 10 years back, 5
that's
years back
good.
on all the things
Yeah,
that were
Jeff was
bad.
saying that too. Yeah, deal with those things. And if you find that those things, no matter, I will also say, if you find that those things that you deal with and they're still in your bag, they have not left, and maybe they've invited cousins and sisters that are related to them. So now there's even duplicates of it. We got an issue.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Yes.
And so, Quint,
Yeah.
I want you to kind of end this, for us tonight, because again, our Superhero for Christ show is about a discussion. People aren't about discussion. This ain't gonna be their show. This is not about rushing it. It's about talking about it. And man, and if Xavier was here, it probably would be a complete hour and a half plus show because we are completing the thought. But Quint, if you want to take like the last, 2 to 3 minutes, and if someone was there, what would you say to them?
What would I say to them if they were in a position they felt stuck?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that they need to they need to they need to move on. They need to move out. That that whole fear of there's something more that God has, that it's going to be okay, but they are hooked
Yeah,
and they need to leave, but they can't. What would you say to them?
yeah. I would say. I mean, I can use the example of we just moved into this house,
Mm-hmm.
and 10 days later, I'm resigning from my job. It's not that I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to. The Lord orchestrated that in such a way. That was not ideal. That's not what I wanted,
Yeah.
right? I
Mm-hmm.
had some bills to pay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as the provider for the family, and
Mm-hmm.
and all that. Um, I felt I felt stuck almost. I
Mm-hmm.
felt, I can't leave this job. And there was a period of time when I thought, man, I can't leave this. What happens if I leave this? Right? There's a lot of fear,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jeff was talking about. I, at that point, I had to. I mean, I had to really look at what do I believe the Lord has for me? Is this it? Is this all that I believe the Lord has for me? And the answer to that was no. I think the Lord always has bigger and better things for us. It's our minds that limit that, and my mind was limiting myself and my view and my
Mm-hmm.
my potential outcomes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
to me, there was a lot about mindset. What helped me in that was some of the condition setting that we did prior to. I mean, financially, we did some condition setting.
Mm-hmm.
We had X amount of money. We had numbers of
Mm-hmm.
conversations about it, that we had money set aside in savings, that I knew that if something happened, right? We even talked about if this type of thing happened, and we had laid out the numbers. And so, yes, there was this fear. Yes, I didn't want to take that step, um, but I knew this wasn't all that the Lord had for me. I knew that this was potentially the Lord making the shift, causing the shift to occur, because
Mm-hmm.
He needed me to go someplace
That's a
else,
great example.
and the conditions had already been set. The Lord had been working with us prior to that to set those conditions, so that I didn't have. There was no need for that fear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
fear was uncalled for.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I had to break out of my own mind to get to that place mentally. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would just tell people, step back from where you are, take a broader look at this, and know that God's still on the throne. He's still in control. His people never go wanting,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what the scripture says. His desire is to provide. He loves us. I mean, He's going to bring us through it. Doesn't mean it's not going to be a challenge. Doesn't mean we're not going to be
Mm-hmm.
stressed at one point or several points through there.
Mm-hmm.
But He's got a better place He's trying to take us to. And I had to fully grab a hold of that. It had to go from here to here. I had to not just think it, I had to believe it. I had to own it, grab a hold of it, and say,
Yeah.
yes, Lord,
Yeah.
okay, let's go.
Okay.
I let go, and let's go.
That's good.
So
That's
that's what I
good.
would recommend. And that's a mindset thing.
That's good. That's good. And I'll add this as we close and the other thing that you got to do is to really set your mind on the fact that if you're here and that's not a good situation, that is not where God has you. He's got something He's doing and something He's taking you to. My whole mentality where Quint got to see, who I've raised up to be through my journeys is that when that moment happened, Quint saw me immediately grab a pen and a paper, and I looked him in the eye and said, "I'm sorry, I'm not accepting this." I went hardcore. I gave him a look like, I know He's removed this, but there's no way that God would bring us to this house and not have something to provide for it. And I made a list of every single person I knew, and I just started dialing for Jesus. I started calling people and talking to people, and man, within, I say maybe 6 weeks, Quint, would you say? Here came God bringing all these blessings financially. It was just like, no, I don't receive this. I'm sorry. I cannot
Well, and
feel like this is what God wants for me. I'm sorry, Quint. Yes, go. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I was going to add to what you're saying. That was a condition that existed as well, is that I had this awesome helpmeet. I
Mm-hmm.
had this awesome partner. So it didn't, in my mind, it was on my shoulders, but it truly wasn't.
Right.
It was on our shoulders. We
Right.
we together
Mm-hmm.
could do more than I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
myself could.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the Lord brought that forward.
Yeah. It's about digging, y'all. It is literally about not sitting and waiting. God is like, I am right here. Step out. I told Quint, this is where I got to go hard. This is where I got to truly start seeking and finding and petitioning and letting the Lord knows, Lord, I know you got it. I will look left, right, up, down. I will do whatever. And sure enough, He brought it. It is a tough place to be when you're by yourself and you don't have a helpmeet. I get that. When maybe you are a single mom or a single dad or it's just you. But here's the thing, and I say this respectfully to Quint, that mindset that Quint is talking about has to be first with you and God before it's ever between you and your mate. It's got to be first with you and your walk and who you believe Jesus is to you. And again, what we just talked about 2 days ago, He said, you're my nation. I choose you. I choose you over everything. I choose you first. And even when Adam and Eve did what they did, he loved us so much to say, oh no, I've got to reset this because this is who I choose to be first. So I knew in that moment that mindset, and yes, I was worried. Yes, I was concerned. But I had to keep my eye focused on Jesus to say, nope, there's no way in the world. And whatever I need to do, Lord, let's go. And I just had to believe that this situation, God had it. And yes, I question everything. I remember telling Quint, okay, so let's make sure this is the house that we were supposed to move into. And I love that because I walked it out with Byron in prayer and in fasting and with Quint being even there with scripture, because I went to God, I could pull up my notes and literally see the scriptures where, nope, this is what God said. Nope, this is what he did. And even had, like X said a second ago, getting counsel. Byron was the one he told me to call back when we were looking at the house. Call your brother. And so he literally, every time I got scripture, I gave it to Byron. Every time God spoke to me, I gave it to Byron. And we would read it and really take counsel and pray and say, this is what we're doing. That's why it's so important that where God chooses you first, you choose God first always, so that in those moments of when it's time to become unhooked, when it's time to no longer be bound and it's time to move on so that we can grow into what Christ has, because you can't stay here. Our God is a forward-moving God. We are going to have to say goodbye to some things. We're going to have to, man, it doesn't mean you don't care and you're cruel and you're mean and you're not a good Christian. It just means that, look, I got to move forward. Because in order for me to go to where God wants and what he has for me, it ain't here. We got to move forward. And then what it does, and I love that, Quint, you said this, is what God then did, because I don't want to say it was me. That's why I said it ain't really about your partner. It's about God. What God did in me then, he used that in me to kind of be that person for Quint. You know, and that's where Jeff and Byron talked about, you know, those people, you know, like Jeff says, man, let people serve you and help you, because God sometimes will send you people to help you move forward. And by you getting on the phone, by you calling and seeking, I had a friend of mine who lost her job, and man, it was really hard for her to get back up and to start, you know, seeking, saying, God, if I'm here, you've done it, which means you've got something else. That I was a nuisance to her. I know she was wanting to just delete me from her phone every week. Hey, how are we doing? Are you up yet? Have you called yet? Have you sought this yet? Have you looked into this yet? I know I drove her nuts. But lo and behold, that's where we got to go. So I love this topic. This is a good topic, and I know that there's other questions we're moving into. But next week, you guys, it is all about Thanksgiving. And so obviously Thursday night would be Thanksgiving. And these men know me. I'd show up. I'll be here, but I know you may not be here. I'm one of those that any time, any place, any day that I would be here. I'll have my turkey right here eating it, y'all, talking about it. But I do want to tell you that we want to move the show. I'll get with the guys in Huddle. I will post what day we're going to do, because one of the things that we've got to do so that we can move forward and trust the Lord is to look at what he's already done. Is to look at the things that he's doing and have a spirit of gratefulness, of worship and acknowledgement, so that we know he's working. So why would he not be working in this? It's thanksgiving and thanking him for everything that he's already done, so that we can thank him for what he's doing and claim it. Okay, and then also you guys make sure you join me tomorrow morning. I will be live, okay, to where we are going to be reading Luke 8. This is what God gave with the whole metamorphosis. You know, I need to come and bring it to you, and I guarantee you when you hear it, it is going to now connect even the dots of what we've already brought, you know, over the last, 2 to 3 weeks, and definitely what I have brought on you guys Tuesday night. And so with that, you guys, if this has blessed you, please make sure you share it. Don't leave without sharing it. I love when I watch something and I get fed. I know, pay it forward. I know this may be for somebody else, so please share. And thank you to my brothers down at the bottom, Mr. Jeff with that great smile, and Byron, excited that you were able to join us tonight, and Mr. Q-Dog, and hopefully, God willing, we'll have Mr. Xavier, Mr. Logistics, as Jeff calls it, I got some things to tease him about too next week if he comes, about logistics. So it'll be fun. But I'm excited and expecting for God to have him here with us, for our next show. And so, Jeff, I think I gave you minutes to talk, right? Did I forget you? I did. I want to make sure I didn't forget you. All right, you guys, be blessed, and we will see you guys next week. And for those who want to join me for the word, I will see you in the morning at 8:45 Central Standard. 9:45 on the East Coast, and yes, 6:45 for the Pacific Coaster. And I know I've got my little video ready. I know I do because I tested it. Bye-bye, you guys. Love you.
Yeah.